Hope you had your lunch. And I'm still waiting on mine. I got to figure out what I'm going to have for lunch. By the way, it is bases dropped for the afternoon here at Soccer Down here on a Friday. Hopefully you've enjoyed the morning programming and got the chance to listen to it. It was great to catch up with Jarrett for the weekend whip around, patent pending, trademark coming, where we went through all of the matchups in about 20 minutes. So there's that. You have our visit from our friends at Beyond Goals Mettering. Greg Garza came in for the Friday free kick, and we got to talk about a lot of different topics. You can listen to that as well. And then we took the tour around the gossip and the TV schedules and all the viewing and things like that to get everything squared away for a very, very busy weekend across the board. And it's decision day in Major League Soccer. And it'll be good to catch up with our friend Niko Moreno from Pulso Sports, El Rolo and W on the Twitters. And it will be a good chance to get the lay of the land from him when it comes to everything going on in the West, which is outright chaos. And we'll get into that. We'll get into what his thoughts are when it comes to all of the activity going on in soccer across the board. And we'll get into, I'll ask him about Lionel Messi and the thoughts. Not necessarily a big surprise or anything that Messi says that this is probably going to be his last World Cup that he will be an active participant in, obviously looking at a lot of other things with that. And then you have the activity that happened last night. And I wanted to kind of get into this with him as well in Argentina, see if he saw it with Gimnasia and Boca Juniors and everybody there with all of that stuff. So we'll be catching up with Niko here in just a little bit. His day, when he has like actual outside of soccer things, sometimes we have to push Thursdays to Fridays. And so when we get the chance to catch up with Niko and grab the comet by the tail, we can do that. And it's really cool to continue to get his perspectives on everything going on there out west and get the Western perspective about what's going on here in the East and understand what's going on in the West, because it is outright chaos. So, we'll get into all of the math that's involved, and there's plenty of that. And we'll see how he is spending his time with Pulso Sports and how busy it's going to be on the weekend. And we've also got some programming from Nycfc. Nycfc has some independent programming he's got, and so it's good for his Q&A sessions that he brings to the network as well. But now it is that time, because I heard the noise in the green room, and that means only one thing. It means that someone is making his appearance. Beat 2, 3, 4, and there he is, Niko Moreno. It is, let's see, are you on your second cup of coffee by now?
Yes, sir. The second, man. You got me dialed in.
Oh, okay. Oh, and he's got the Rave Green dialed up this morning. Okay, I see how it is. All right.
That's right.
For the next half hour, it is Thursdays with Niko on a Friday. And I want to get into Decision Day and what has the vibe been there in Seattle first and foremost, as we kind of work our way from west to east with you. What has the vibe been there, knowing that much like here, Decision Day is just going to be playing out the string? What has the vibe been like?
It's difficult. It's looming. First of all, let me say that, hi to you and the best show around, the best audience around. Happy to be here on this Friday. And yes, as you would understand, it is a loomy, uncharted waters for this fan base, this city. It's so odd to be getting ready for MLS playoffs and see on one end at Lumen Field that there's going to be nothing going on, while on the other side at T-Mobile Park, potentially there could be a playoff game. So it is an awkward, odd year, and that's what you see around the city. Fans are frustrated. They are asking a lot of questions, my DMs and my mentions in Twitter have exploded about what happened, what was wrong, what could have been done differently. Garth Lagerwey has been various radio shows talking about what's going on, and it's fair, right? I mean, once a fan base is used to a certain standard, they should keep it that way. And I'm never going to tell a fan, hey, don't express your feelings, because that's what it's all about. It's about being passionate. And if you want to feel like, hey, the team could have done better, then that's your prerogative. However, do try to listen to a lot of the facts and the things that kind of came into this season. We talked about the wear and tear of CCL. We talked about the injuries. We talked about players that were in various competitions in a limited roster because of injuries, and then a salary cap that was extended to the very max. So there wasn't really much that Garth could do to bring players in. So definitely what you would expect from, as I mentioned, a fun fan base that is used to nothing but playoffs, a Brian Smetzer that ever since he's taken over, he's always been either fighting for a title or somewhere to that extent at this point in time. So it's difficult over here for sure.
How is the season characterized, though? You've got a CCL title, but you don't make the playoffs. Was it a lost year? Was it an incomplete year? I mean, what are the takeaways from the fans? You've got a title, but you're not making the playoffs, and I know that's two sides of the street here. But what's the takeaway?
Yeah, it's truly divided. There are the fans that believe that it is an unsuccessful season and that this was a total wash, that it was not worth winning a CCL championship, which, boggles my mind, to be quite frank. But they do believe that there should have been better planning and that this team should have been more ready for the domestic league contention. That said, regardless of how much planning there was, there are things that are circumstantial. You cannot plan for Christian Roldan, who's been your healthiest player over the span of his time here, and a guy that's been a main factor in every title the city has gotten in terms of the Rave Green. Raul Ruidiaz being hurt, Nuhu being hurt, Obed Vargas, Joe Paulo. I mean, there were so many issues that it's really hard for me to gasp and really gather where a lot of fans are coming now. Once again, it is their prerogative, and I always encourage fans to just let out what they're feeling. But you have to have a little bit of common sense when it comes to a lot of those things. And now the international title, you're going to be playing next year for a cup that no MLS team has ever entered, right? The Club World Club is what you won. Again, it's kind of what every club in MLS should aspire to get to. So there is a very divided fan base, as is expected, I think.
And you're having to do all of this in a cap structure. This isn't Football Manager, and it's not the Premier League where you can sit there and it's like, okay, well, I have all of these injuries. I'm going to go to La Liga and I'm going to take somebody for 20 million, or I'm going to go to South America and add another young talent that way. The biggest thing is that the cap structure that's attached to all of this ties your hands in what you can and can't do. And I've seen that there's the possibility of adding a fourth DP with revenue and competitions and things like that. And I think that it's one of those watershed ideas where I think we're close enough to the notion of going ahead and letting folks invest to the level that they want to invest and getting rid of cap structure and all that kind of stuff. I think we're getting closer and closer to that. But I think that a lot of folks have to be reminded sometimes that we are in a cap league and there's only so much you can do if you I'll use the term, it may not necessarily be correct, front load everything. You go right up to the cap number with all of the activity that you've done. Trust your system from within, trust Tacoma, trust what you see from the young players that you're developing, and then things still go wrong, but you don't have another mechanism that can get you over those humps.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir, first of all, and I love your take on that. because it's very true, right? And we don't know what's going to happen, what's going to change, and there are a lot of things about cap space that I like. I think that MLS is one of the leagues or very few leagues in the planet that has a lot of parity, that anybody can win a title, and a lot of it has to do with that, because you're not making it all about how much money does your club have, and then you turn into a league like La Liga, where it's a 3-horse race at the very end of the day. Even Premier League at times can be that way. So there are things I like, but going to your point, the crazy part and what you kind of made me realize is that Seattle, regardless of what people think, they literally have 4 DP talents because of how well Garth Lagerwey ran things. Because João Paulo, they were able to buy him down. He was an MVP finalist. He was a guy that was amazing since his time here. And you had Rusnak, and you had Nico, and you had Raul. Now, these are older players, but you needed to secure them for a long time in order to give your team some stability and continuity, which has been something that's been talked about quite often here, because people are asking for changes. But I think that there is no better GM in MLS than Garth Lagerwey. And if anybody can look at loopholes and manage a cap, is this guy, right? So that's kind of my challenge with understanding some of the frustrations and some of the demands that I hear from fans, because at the end of the day, this was a quality squad. This was a pretty deep team at one point, and we're all about results, right? I mean, if we go back to, I don't know, July, June, we were saying, man, this Seattle Sounders team is amazing. It's great. They're about to win Champions League. Look how good they play. They're great in transition. And now we just forget about all of that because of things that have happened here over the last couple of months. So it's just very subjective. But at the end of the day, I think that things are being done right here. Could there be things better? Yes. And Garth Lagerwey kind of alluded to that. This week, he talked about maybe changes, things that have been working in the past that maybe are going to work in the future that aren't working now. But this is a winning team. This is a winning organization that I think is going to be looking to better themselves here on out.
So when you look at the West and what it is heading into the last week of the regular season, I think it's safe to say that the West is absolute chaos, because you have so many things that could happen. We know LAFC won the dinner plate. They're gonna put all of the lobster tail, the shrimp tails, and the cocktail sauce. They're going to put it right there, and they're going to put it right there in the middle of everything at the bank. Austin, we know Austin's locked in place. Dallas pretty much is locked in place. They just need a result. But then chaos begins at number 4. LAG, 47 points, 13 wins. Nashville, 47 points, 12 wins. Portland, 46 points, 11 wins. Minnesota, 45 points, 13 wins. RSL has 3 of a kind, 11, 11, and 11, 44 points. And then we know that 3 of a kind beats a pair, but then you've got Vancouver at 43 with 12 wins, coming in from lane 8 again with Vanni Sartini as they're chasing after things. It is nuts. You have 6 teams separated by 4 points, and you could have anything and everything happen going into this weekend. When you look at this chaos, what do you see?
I see parity. I see a lot of drop points and missed opportunities, and I see how hard to decipher and predict this league can be. I see a Nashville team that, with a good structure and an MVP, without a doubt for me, which is Hani Mukhtar, they were able to kind of balance things out. And I think they have a good chance at not just staying there, but maybe getting another 3 points. An LA Galaxy team that I think was able to just hold on for dear life despite missed penalty kicks, bad acquisitions, and terrible defense. I see a Portland Timbers team that let me down. Yeah. I'll be the first one to say it against LAFC. I think I was 0 for 3 or something with my predictions last week. And I'm not afraid to say it. I thought that this team was going to do a little more. So it makes me question them here in the playoffs, because this is playoff atmosphere. This is as good as it gets. When LAFC comes into your house, you gotta let them have it, and they weren't able to do that. So I just see a lot of parity. That said, I think that RSL might not have enough.
Yeah.
At this point, I think that they just gave up way too many easy results, and they weren't able to capitalize on a good momentum that they had throughout the season. So it was a good one. And I see a Minnesota team that is exactly. It is a roller coaster, and they've been declining, right? But perhaps right now, when it's all said and done, they might be able to rescue it, right? So it just is crazy. It is wild, and I'm excited to see what decision day brings up for this West Coast.
I mean, it is going to be absolutely nuts when it comes to it, and we'll get to cliffhanger here in about 5 minutes. We'll go through all of decision day and see what you think about the 255s and the 518 Easterns. And so, I mean, it's going to be it's fun to see everything starting all at once, both conferences, all that kind of stuff. And I'm glad that this was adopted, considering that we have chaos on both ends. And then you look in the East and getting into the Eastern Conference, it's interesting for different reasons, because if Montreal wins and Philadelphia does not, Montreal is the top seed in the Eastern Conference. Because of Philly's late season slide, Montreal, and everything would go through Stade Saputo, which is in and of itself very interesting. NYC and Red Bulls, they're separated by 2 points at 3 and 4. Then your chaos with 4, and we know Miami is in, so it's just where Miami's going to be in all of this. Cincinnati 46, Columbus 46, and Orlando is at 45, but Orlando has the most wins in the bunch going into the final weekend at 13. It's an interesting place for the chaos when you look at a Miami team that has turned a corner, and I will put my hand up and sit here and say Chris Henderson, Exec of the Year, and Phil Neville, Coach of the Year, for everything that they've done at Inter Miami with basically the 24 changes in personnel that Chris Henderson had to make, and Neville sticking to his guns and saying that this is going to be done this way and this is how we're going to do it. For me, I got to give it to Henderson and Neville for Coach and Exec of the Year.
Yeah, no, I give it to you. And this Inter Miami team, I mean, they just showed you what they got, man. And no Pozuelo, no problems, which is something that we were questioning, right? Higuain, I think the season has been affected in a way that I don't even think he knew he could do it, right? I mean, he's decided to put his head down. If I got to come in, I'm going to be a team player. I think all of that has really pushed the young guys, all the DPs, and it's really worked in making this team closer. And now, once he decided to announce his retirement, and I heard the stories, and I talked to guys in Miami about how everybody in the press conference was crying, and all the teammates. I think that brings a team closer together. And these guys went out there and they played their behinds off. I mean, it is not often that an Oscar Pereira team gets run off the field. And those first 45 minutes, man, they had no idea what was coming to them. It's starting with a Leonardo Campana goal that was absolutely fabulous. So now you got to think about what this team has done in a short time and how that could impact their impulse going into the playoffs. So I'm with you. I will give you Chris Henderson for Exec of the Year. However, God, I'm not a huge Phil Neville fan, especially with how things started. I think there was a lot of misreads and misuse of players. So my vote's still Josh Wolf, or perhaps Wilfred Nancy, because I think that is remarkable what he's been able to do with Montreal. And I mean, you just said it all, right? I mean, a win and a loss by a Philadelphia team that keeps kind of stepping on their own feet. Mm-hmm. And they'll be leading the East. So, just everything is telling me that either is Wilfred Nancy or Josh Wolf. I'm probably going to end up voting for Wilfred Nancy just because I think Josh got a lot of very good, talented players that made life a little easier. And he's had, I think, more time to kind of solidify and cement his style of play, which is fantastic. I think it's great how the players have just bought in on his skill set and what he's put as a strategist on the field. So yes, I'll give you Chris Henderson, but I have to go with Wilfred Nancy for manager of the year.
I'm down with that too, and it's one of the quietest manager of the year situations we've seen because of Montreal being detached from everything. It's not something where the American media sits there and bangs on the CF Montreal soon-to-be Impact, probably, hopefully, maybe's door, and says, "Hey, we want to talk to Georgi Mihailovic. Hey, we want to talk to Victor Wanyama. We want to knock on your door and talk to you." It's one of the quietest efforts that we've seen that is that close to being a number one seed in a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that is the case, that they're so under the radar, and I think we all are, at the end of the day, guilty for it, because usually when I'm looking for news or I'm looking for games, unfortunately, I'll tell you, Montreal is not at the top of the list. And it should be, right? Because of everything they've been doing, and Kyoto's resurrection in his career, and Mihailovic and Victor Wanyama, who had been sporadically good, but hadn't had a season like this one. And I mean, they're putting historic numbers in terms of franchise, right? So you got to give them that credit and really, tip your hat to Nancy for just putting it all together. Particularly so after Thierry Henry just said, "Hey, man, I don't know if I could do this. It's too much pressure. I don't know what he was seeing." And he decided to just pack his bags and head home. So credit to this team, credit to everything that they've been able to do. I think that, we're all thinking about Mihailovic and his season and his MVP caliber, and then he gets hurt, and you're like, "Oh man, that sky's gonna fall for this team." But they stay consistent. They believe in the system. Victor Wanyama steps up, and just this whole team just kind of rallies behind that. So man, it's impressive for what they've been able to do, and I would not want to play this Montreal team going into the playoffs.
All right, second half of the show. You know what that means? It's time for cliffhanger, as we
yes, sir.
It is cliffhanger time, and usually what we do is that we will run down the gauntlet of games, and when there's a match that Niko wants to talk about, he yells stop, or he just plows right into the conversation and just starts talking about the match in particular. We're going to go east to west, east to west, obviously, and I'm going to go ahead and stop you after the first one. Atlanta United, NYC. Atlanta United favored. They're on the minus side of the juice boxes at a minus 104. NYC's basically at a plus 245. When you see this one, obviously, Atlanta United and Seattle Sounders, there are a lot of parallels that we've been discussing all season long when it comes to build, when it comes to injuries, when it comes to trying to figure out how to navigate a season. What do you see with Atlanta United and NYCFC?
Hey, man, I see a team that, just like you said, it has to take a page from Stephen Fry's book. I love the way that Stephen Fry, after Seattle was eliminated, said the preseason starts this week. Preseason starts next game. And I think that's what I see when I see this game. For Atlanta United, a team that, again, let me down because I thought they were going to dominate last game, and they didn't. However, they're going to have to take this challenge in, Strong's arm in, right? Who is going to work for this squad when it's a meaningless game? Who's going to really fight for their job? Who are the guys that are going to be the leaders on this team for the upcoming season? So I think that's the way Pineda's going to look at it. And it is something that will be defined for a lot of these guys in choosing what they're going to go on with this road. Am I going to bleed for this fan base? Am I going to fight for this coach that I know is going to be here next year? So it's all a first step into what should be a much better 2023 season. So that's in terms of Atlanta. In New York side, you got to try to figure out how things are going to play out for you in the playoffs. We're talking about a one game in, and that's it. That's all you're getting. So for New York is what best 11 are you going to be able to put in there that is going to work out for the playoffs. They're playing well. Alexander Cayens, for me, is the defender of the year. He's been a leader. He's been good defensively. He's good on the ball, distributing. He's also giving you goals. He has, stepped up without Tati Castellanos and just decided to just give you goals, man. So this is a very talented team, very young, Thales Magno and Santiago Rodriguez, and a team that could really be a force to be reckoned with, but character, heart. That's what I'm looking for. If it's not Alexander Cayens, somebody else got to put it in there, and you're going to need it if you're going to get through this MLS playoffs. So there's a lot of teams in the East that have a lot to prove and have a lot of heart.
Fire and Revs, plus 116 for Chicago. Your draw is a plus 261. The Revs are a plus 213. Good on you both. DC United and FC Cincinnati. FC Cincinnati needs a result here. FC Cincinnati on the minus side at a minus 108. Your draw is a plus 283. DC United a plus 259. Now the fun part. Match number 4 in the East. Inter Miami, CF Montreal. Inter Miami, and this one has it's been even Steven. That basically the Juice Boxers have thrown a blanket over both teams. They're within the margin of error. Right now, in the composite, Inter Miami's a plus 156. Montreal's a plus 148. Your draw's a plus 276. What do you think?
It's a tough game. Tough to pick. I get what they're putting the blanket on them. Leonardo Campana leaving is tough for this team. I get that Higuain has been outstanding, and Lassiter and everybody who's came in and helped out this squad, especially with Pozuelo back, give you confidence that they can play well. But nobody can run like Leonardo Campana. Nobody can give you a lot of the qualities that he can give you. He is a perfect partner, in my opinion, for Higuain under this new formation that Phil Neville's playing. So that's a tough one. Common sense, or not common sense, but if you look back at the season, you would think that, hey, I'm just going to go and think that Montreal is going to dominate this game, but I'm not sure if that is the case for them. So how much are they willing to risk? How much are they willing to play? Those are questions that I think we're going to see in this one, but it should be fun. I got to give it to you. I will make it my duty to make sure to watch this entire game as a huge apology to Alfred and the rest of that organization.
Red Bulls in Charlotte. Red Bulls heavy on the minus side at minus 164. Your draw is basically just north of plus 300. Charlotte's plus 4.25.
That's an interesting one, man. I like it. That's an interesting one because, man, this Charlotte team just seems to enjoy to ruin parties, and they enjoy just being that rock in your shoe that they have nothing to play for, but they're just going to ruin your life. I think Sadecki is someone that he's dangerous at every single moment. You got to enjoy Daniel Rios just being a guy that lives up to big moments, and he just showed you against Columbus, man, that they were up 2-0, comfortably winning that game. I thought that he could have been even more than that. Diaz, Etienne, these guys were really on top of Kalina, who, despite the mistake on the first goal, because he was way too far out, when you got a guy with a missile, with a tomahawk on his foot, the way Lucas Larian has. But after that, man, he was unbelievable. I mean, closing down space, dominating in the air, the shots he was stopping, man. Not a lot of keepers in this league can stop that. So this Charlotte team, I just feel like they are just a proud squad. And for me, that's been just hard to believe and kind of comprehend because of everything that we saw from this team and how discouraging at one point it was down there, right? So this will be a good one. And Red Bulls, man, I think Red Bulls are a squad that could really surprise teams in the playoffs because they're so true to their form. I think Morgan is having one of the best seasons I've seen him have. I love the midfield and how they don't allow anything to get past them, and they don't need the ball to beat you in the game. So this is a good one. This is a game that I think it's a dress rehearsal for the Red Bulls, and I'm going to put my signature on what I thought was going to be a crappy season, but now we're going to leave the last note as a good one in terms of Charlotte. So I think both teams are going to go out here and really play in that pitch. They're going to leave it all on the field.
All right. And so you mentioned chaos and what's going on in the East. Orlando City Columbus Crew, how you doing?
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
7 versus 8. Your juice box is here. Orlando City plus 106. Your draws to plus 254, and the Crew are plus 238.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Orlando City, man, it feels like whenever I hype them up, they just play really poorly, and that's what we just saw with them with Inter Miami. I think there's a lot of decision making that needs to be done from Oscar Pareja. Akindele, to me, is not a guy that you want to see in that starting 11 up top for you. He's a great guy, veteran, experience, sure, definitely coming off the bench. I get it. I like it. Oscar Pareja has a lot of trust in him. He's had him since Dallas. He's played well for him. But the fact that Cara didn't start this game was concerning to me. I get that he hasn't been outstanding for a guy that you brought in to be your goal scorer, but you got to give continuity to this squad. You got to be able to, from last game on, create some momentum to get into the playoffs, because you had the momentum after you won Open Cup. So I was concerned with the lineup that he brought up last. I think Pedro Galeza needs to be better as well. And that defensive backline, man, it's a lot of issues. And I just don't know if this team can be consistent enough through the playoffs to make me believe that, one game, that's all you're going to get. They're going to be able to get for it. They were my black horse initially, but they're making me doubt them. So this game coming up is going to be really telling of what you're going to be able to see from them here on out. And then Columbus, man, they're such a good team in parts of the game, and they look amazing, and then they'll just forget to play. What is it, 11 points they've missed in the last minutes, man? I mean, it's incredible. And it's hard for me to really get it, because Caleb is a guy that's been in this league long enough that he should know what it takes to get guys organized for 90 minutes, man. So this is going to be a good one. However, I do see Orlando fixing a lot of these things. I think Angulo will start in this one, and they were going to really put pressure on this Columbus squad, make him defend, and that's how they're going to get the result on this one.
All right, and so then let me ask you this. With all of the chaos that we've been talking about, does Toronto get a result that will keep Philadelphia from being the top seed?
Man, that's a tough one, man. And it's something that I wouldn't have told you 3 weeks ago. But no, I think Philadelphia will figure it out. They've made enough mistakes to last them the rest of the playoffs. I think in the last couple of games, they've been bleak. They've been ineffective, and they really lacked the clinical ability from their attacking players. But I think they'll fix it in this one. Toronto is a benevolent team. They allow you to go ahead and
That's a word to use.
Walk through the door and score for us. Get your attacking players in confidence for the playoffs. So I see that happening. This might be a 4-3 score line, but I think that this Philadelphia team will figure it out.
All right, Western stuff, 5:18 Eastern. Austin, they're on the minus side hosting Colorado. Colorado's at a plus 300. FC Dallas, minus 115, hosting Sporting Kansas City. The draw and Sporting are basically a plus 280. Houston, hosting LAG. LAG is a plus 110 on the road. Houston is a plus 202.
That's a good one. Okay. That's a good one. That's a good one, because LA Galaxy, man, they really need to push the subject on getting this group to believe, man, because if Douglas Costa is having to come in for you and scored a PK to get you going, man, and Ricky Pucher boy wonder is missing PKs, man. I mean, you got to figure it out. You got to understand that you're not going to get any more chances, and you're not going to. You got to figure out this squad from beginning to end. Javier Hernandez is a guy that could really push this team to great things, but they need to get this squad together because I don't see it right now. And Greg Vanney, he, in my opinion, just kind of slid into the playoffs. You might not see that in the standings today, and you might not see that in the points. But in terms of play, this team slid into. They were at the benefit that RSL played poorly, that Seattle screwed the pooch, and all of these teams just gave you the ability to get in there, but they're not a consistent team, man. So this one against a Houston team that you should demolish, that's given big teams trouble before, as they did with LAFC, you gotta make a statement in this one. You have to be able to win and win right. And I'm not just talking about a scoreline. I'm talking about dominated. Ricky's got to look good. Bergman's got to look good. Cabral needs to start finding the goal. I mean, you got to really get some sense for this team to have a little bit of momentum going into the playoffs. Because if not, it's going to be LA in, LA out.
Speaking of LA in, LA out, LAFC is a big minus 159 in a game that doesn't matter to them at all. Nashville SC is a plus 365. I found that interesting with a 12-point margin. I think LAFC probably does heavy rotation, and I would go with Nashville in that one.
Yeah, no, and that's why I said that I think Nashville's going to get 3 points this weekend. They are a team that, to me, they're not going to care whether LAFC decided to put in all the young bucks or they're going to put the dinosaurs in with Kalini and Bell. Like, they're going to be able to just do their game. Gary Smith is a guy that has shown you that he's not going to think twice. He has his lineup, he has his rotation, and he just wants that continuity to continue. And this Nashville team, despite dropping the ball against Houston, I think they're a team that could really get some leadership. I think Zimmerman hasn't been as great as he's been in the past, which is a big downfall for this squad. And just looking at the entirety of the season, right? I'm just talking about the Zimmerman that we saw last season is not the Zimmerman of this year. I think Leal has been more of a guy that's going to really run the field for you, and Mukhtar. So with some of that dependency on these players, what I would like to see in this one, and I think what we will see, is other players maybe stepping up and getting that confidence for Gary Smith going into the playoffs.
All right, so now we got a handful left, and we look at the remainder of the games. Minnesota United, Vancouver. Minnesota United at Allianz is a minus 122. Vancouver's a plus 287. Your draw is basically a plus 300. I think Minnesota collapses. I'm going with Vancouver.
That's tough, man. That's tough. Vancouver is feeling themselves, and they are believing, and they got a good plan to just win games in an ugly way. Like, it doesn't matter how they're getting points, they're going to get them. So that's dangerous. But I don't know how Vancouver is going to be able to maintain and minimize Minnesota's midfield. And I think that that's the heart and soul of this Minnesota team, is from those CDMs all the way down to those three right in front of them. And Vancouver, they are not a team that is going to be able to just dominate you in that part of the field. So although the tales, right, how they're coming into this game, the momentum and everything screams Vancouver, I think that Reynoso and company are going to win this game. And that's just going from a soccer standpoint, and what I think guys like Fragapane might do in a game like this one. I think he's going to be able to let loose and really get Amarilla going for this one. So because of that, I'm going to give Minnesota the benefit of the doubt, and I think they're going to squeeze in to this playoffs.
All right, so that leaves us with two. RSL and Portland. I know you're not high on RSL. The game's at the Riot, minus 112 for RSL. Your draw's a plus 290. Portland's a plus 266.
I call it a get-right game. Get-right game for Timbers. They are going to be able to put it together, and I think Mr. October, Darren Esprilla, is going to ball in this one, and it's going to be a get-right game for them. I didn't think they were awful against LAFC. I just thought that they didn't take care of their opportunities. I like the goalkeeping, which is something that Portland, I don't know if we've been able to say that in a little bit since Clark left. I think the defense is getting better. And I think that midfield is so experienced that they're going to be able to contain a countering RSL team. That's where their bread and butter is. That's what they're going to want to do with this game. And I think that when you play that game against Timbers is going to just get on top of you. So because of that, I think it's going to be a get-right game for Timbers, and they're going to go into the playoffs with another 3 points.
All right, so then what happens in Seattle's last match of the year?
It's, fan appreciation. It is a game that, like Steph said, it's the beginning of next season. I see a lot of maybe younger players getting a start in this one. I'm not sure. We're going to be heading down to practice here in a little bit. Training has been different. It's been fun, or at least tried to be. Not a lot of tactical stuff. I think Brian Smetzer and the coaching staff are really trying to make sure that the team puts behind what happened and some of the negatives. And even Nicolas Adero after the game, you could tell that he was wearing, these feelings on his chest when he was talking about everything that maybe CCL Band-Aid in terms of things that got done wrong. So I feel like the coaching staff is doing a good job at just getting this group back together. But it is a proud team. And Raul Ruiz is not going to be available, but he wanted to be. And that tells me that this team just wants to go out on a good note. Raul Ruiz, he has no reason to want to play this game. He got hurt pretty, not severely, but he got hurt in a big sense playing for his national team. And the fact that he wants to play this game, the fact that he wants to try to sneak in there and push for that game tells me a lot of things. Now, he's not going to happen because we've seen him jogging and you can tell there's still pain there. But I just think this team is too proud to not go into this one and absolutely leave it all on the field. So I think San Jose is going to get a hurt team that's going to want to show everybody in this league that there's still fight from them and that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with next year. So I see Seattle winning this game and winning it comfortably against a good San Jose team, which that would say a lot for the Sounders because this San Jose team deserves a lot of respect because of what they've been able to do late in the season and how those players have taken on their new manager.
That's Cliffhanger. That's another round of Thursdays with Niko on a Friday as he sips coffee number 2 out of the Rave Green mug. What's going on at Pulso Sports, my friend?
Pulso Sports, which is decision day. So as I said last week, is going to be a big week for us. We're going to have a lot of roundtables in our channel at Pulso Sports. Look for that in YouTube. And then in our Pulso Sports and my at Rolla NW, we're going to be doing a couple of Twitter spaces just to get the fans' takes on a lot of things. We don't get to do that a lot. And I wanted to really get the take from some of the fans that I'm able to write you back, but I want to hear you. If there's something that I missed from radio, was taking calls from fans and really hearing their sense. And I think this is a moment in time where everybody, regardless of where you are, whether it's in Seattle, in Atlanta, Vancouver, any team that has let you down, I think that you want to be heard. And so I'm going to try to do that this week in our Twitter.
El Rolo NW. There he is. And Niko Moreno, as always, my friend, it's great to catch up with you Thursdays, whether it's a Thursday, a Wednesday, or a Friday, or even a Thursday. So El Rolo NW, he's getting geared up for Decision Day. We'll do it again next week. Thanks for hanging out for another round.
You're the man.
Mucho plata, y'all. It's the end of the show, which means we get to do this as he takes another sip of that coffee and finishes round number 8.